Now, how about them damn Celtics?
All right, we're back with another Boston Celtics video. Today, we're talking about something Chris Mannix of Sports Illustrated said on a recent show he did for the Sports Illustrated YouTube channel. I just believe it was. He was speaking with Rachel Nichols, and he talked about the Celtics trade future potentially. Um, on the show, he said if they make one more move, it wouldn't surprise me. Right now, they're under the first apron. They're almost under the tax. And if they make one more move, if they can find anybody who will take the contract of Anthony Simons, that will set them up for success in 2026 and beyond. Basically, talking about could the Celtics duck the tax, which is something we've talked about at length this summer, and trading Simons, which again has been talked about at length this summer, and it just kind of feels too late at this point.
Yeah, they already posted him on social media. They showed him at the Auerbach Center working out with Emile Jefferson. What was that, Thursday it happened? So, yeah. Listen, it makes sense. Definitely, like, the financials make sense. The weird thing about the luxury tax, which we talked about before, is you have to do it for 2 years to reset it. So it's like, this doesn't really give you the opportunity I think you would want to reset it. Like the Tatum injury lets you get below the second apron, lets you get below the first apron without people like really being too skeptical. Even though a lot of people knew that that was coming anyways, like given the circumstances, it's much easier to commit to it, to be like, okay, like this year's probably going to be a wash anyways. Let's just knock all this out while we can and then go from there. But if you were to trade Simons just to get under the luxury tax, then you end up with nothing for him. Not only did you end up with nothing for Porzingis, now you've ended up with nothing for Drew Holiday, and you've lost two of your starters on a champion. Well, I guess Porzingis kind of came off the bench in the finals, but two like top six guys on a championship team. For Porzingis cost you a second round pick, and you got R.J. Lewis, and then Drew Holiday would have whatever they get in the Simons trade would just be that. And the cap relief is important. They need it. Like the second apron penalties are severe. Being able to avoid those things will make it easier to put the roster together the next time Brad Stevens pushes to make the Celtics a contending title team again, which could be very soon, for all we know. But in the meantime, you got to make sure you maximize whatever value you can get
Yeah.
from Simons.
Also, Chris Mannix is, I think, just wrong. He said they're under the first apron. They're not under the first apron. They're
Are
about
they
four
not?
million. They're about $4 million above the first apron right now. They're 7 million under the second apron, but they are about 4 million above the first apron, based on
Well, that's
the
my
spot
mistake too.
track,
You're
the
absolutely
spot
right.
track cap sheet that I see. I read it and I was thinking about it. I'm like, I don't. That doesn't sound right. Yeah, they would need to clear a lot of money to get under the tax line as well, because they are not even above. Maybe he meant second apron and then to first apron, because you get under the first apron and then you reset the taxes. I think so. Maybe that's what he means. I assume that's what he means, because I do think that is how it works. I think if you duck both aprons, then you're out of that tax zone. You're not under the cap, but you're out of the tax zone. So maybe I assume that's what he means, but at that point, they're under the second apron at this point. They would need to shed 4 more million to get under that first apron. I don't know. I don't know the exact numbers. I was trying to find them, but listen, like you said, you need to duck it for 2 years. It already seems like it's pretty clear that there's no real value for Anthony Simons around the league. Like teams aren't willing to pay the matching salary to add $27 million of 1 year of Anthony Simons to the roster. And I don't necessarily think that is a shot at Anthony Simons as a player. Like I don't think that's a fair indication of how talented he is. Excuse me. Um, I just think teams don't want to pay that much money for what he brings to the table, and I get it, right? Like on a one, like I think the fact that he's on an expiring contract makes it maybe a little bit different. Like I think maybe by the deadline, if teams have a couple salaries they aren't a fan of, they didn't really pan out throughout the year, maybe they're like, all right, let's go get Anthony Simons instead. We'll throw a first or a couple seconds or something. And at that point, let's say he didn't fit perfectly next to Derek White and Peyton Pritchard, and you'd rather just double down on those guys' development. And but Shireman's panning out well, and Jordan Walsh looks good, and you kind of just want to trust those guys instead because you think they could develop into a cheaper version of what Simons might want next summer in free agency. Maybe the Celtics do that. Maybe the Celtics can get a couple seconds, but I mean, we've talked about this ad nauseum at this point. Colin Sexton got traded for Yusuf Nurkic. Jordan Clarkson signed a minimum contract. Malcolm Brogdon signed a minimum contract. Like, these types of players just don't have a lot of value anymore. These not great at defense, but scoring punch guards are like, meh. It's like, eh.
There's plenty of
People
them.
aren't, yeah, they're not willing to break, teams aren't willing to break the bank for those guys.
Yeah, and look, does that mean that Anthony Simons won't get any money next summer? Maybe, maybe not. It feels like it's more likely than not that he will get like the mid-level exception, which is something you've said several times when we talk about this. And when you look at it from the Celtics perspective, like that is the thing. It's like, well, if you don't trade him, what happens? That has to be something you feel, I would say, like 80% positive about. If you're not going to get anything for him in a trade, like even if it's a couple picks, if you really don't feel good about him coming back, it's better than letting him walk for nothing, I suppose. But at the same time, if you feel like you can get him back and he's not making a bunch of money, then you're effectively maximizing the value of whatever cap slot you can get if he's sold on staying in Boston, which there's no guarantee he will. He's probably going to be asked to come off the bench, which who knows if he likes that or not. When everybody comes back, his offensive responsibilities and what he's able to do will be very limited. And who knows if he like, I don't know, these NBA guys have such big like egos, and it's like a double-edged sword. It's great for them. Their confidence is sky high, but at the same time, sometimes it doesn't really allow them to mesh well with teams. But if he buys into whatever the Celtics are selling him, then sure, it would be nice to have a player like that on the team next year, but it just depends on how much money he's making. That is the big measuring stick now in the NBA.
Yeah. Upon looking at the money a little bit more, just so we can circle back and close on the point. Second apron, 207 million. First apron, 195 million. Over the cap is 154 million. Under the cap is, 139 is the cap floor. Um, However, you can get the non-taxpayer MLE if you are under the first apron. I believe what it is. You'd just be over the cap, but under the first apron. So I do think the Celtics are a little over 4 million away from that. Which, I mean, listen, like in theory, that's like, oh, shedding $5 more million to get to that point isn't the end of the world. And I do think the way it works is you just have to be there by the end of the season. Like, I don't think they have to do that in the offseason. If you remember, they traded Daniel Tice for the Luke Cornett deal and Mo Wagner to get under the tax a few years ago, which was at the deadline. So I do think there is a world where you could see the Celtics maybe scrounge together a deadline move to get them to that point. But the problem is you don't really have players that make that money that you can just trade away. Like, there's no $5 million player on the roster you can just dump, like was the case with Tice, who was making around there at that point. I think he was on a minimum, but they were only a million over, something like that. Like, you got Tatum at 54, Jalen at 53, then Derek at 28, and then you skip Simons, who's at 27. You've got Hauser at 10, Pritchard at 7, and everybody that else is making 3 million, like under $3 million. So it it would have to be like $2 million player dumps, which is going to be just objectively hard to do mid-season. And then you also have to add a player because you need at least 14 on the roster. It would be very difficult, ironically enough, to shed that 4 point something $1 million without trading the $27 million contract that is Anthony Simons. So is it worth it? If you're trading Simons for nothing, probably not. You just eat it and you deal with it. But if you can get a little bit of value back, whether it's picks or splitting Simons up into two, maybe role players you like a little bit less, but you can also get under that and at least leave the option open for next year, maybe you consider it. But at this point, it just doesn't look like that trade is out there.
Certainly isn't right now. So they wouldn't be rolling him out to training camp next week or 2 weeks, whenever it actually starts, if they had any offer that they liked for him. Clearly, like, all of the reporting has been they would like to trade him, and he's still around. So it sounds like they cannot do so.
Yeah, but let us know what you think. I mean, we talked about this a lot this summer, but let us know. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Leave a like, subscribe, and all that. Sam, take it out.
Hey, thank you very much for listening and watching. Make sure you leave a like, comment. Let us know what you're thinking of the whole Anthony Simons situation. If it's anything different than you've commented before, you can subscribe to the channel too. Jack and I are here every single day. Full pods drop Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Game recaps are up the morning after each game, and other videos are here like this one in between to keep you up to date with all things Celtics. You can find the two of us on Spotify and Apple too. All pods and recaps are streaming there, so if you just want the audio versions, go ahead, follow. They'll go right to your feed. Leave a 5-star review. We'd appreciate that very, very much. You can email us, hbtcpod@gmail.com. We're reading them every single time we record a podcast, so get them in. hbtcpod@gmail.com. Our socials are at How About Them C's for Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Facebook's the name of the podcast. All streams are there. They're on YouTube. They're on Twitter. Jack's Twitter is Jack's1NBA. Mine's at Sam LaFrance NBA. That's it for us.
Check